Okay, back to Genesis chapter 45, and many of you either prayed it or shared it from the front, but you remembered that 2 weeks ago we talked about Jesus being enough, and we took that from chapter 45 and Jacob's statement, verse 28, Israel or Jacob says, "It is enough," or your version, if I rightly remember, says, "I am convinced. Joseph, my son, is still alive, and I will go see him before I die." And we asked that question very briefly. I'm going to go through what we looked at 2 weeks ago, and then I will deliver the rest of the message. But we asked that question, is Jesus enough for you? And I put forward the proposition that Jesus is enough for you, whether you think it or not. But the reality as Christians is that even though our hearts may confess that he's enough, actually sometimes we deny that by the way that we live. We can be like those where Jesus says, "You honor me with your lips, but your heart is far from me." And how do I know that? Well, I know it because that's the case in my own life, and that has been the case various points in my own Christian walk. I say the right things, but actually what I want is Jesus plus something else. I want Jesus plus financial security, and then I will be content as an individual. I want Jesus plus good health, and then I will be happy and content as a believer. I want Jesus plus a happy, thriving gospel church where people are being saved and being married and children are being born and people are being baptized. And then I will be happy. But that is not the question that Jesus asks us today. He asks us that question. The question is, am I enough for you? Am I alone enough for you? Even if God doesn't give you the good things that you want, because sometimes, yes, we do want good things. We want thriving churches. We want our children to grow up and to profess Christ and to go on walking with him. We want our brothers and sisters to go out from this place and plant new churches. We want a new minister. I'm sure you've got, John and Sam, that's great, but you're looking for a full-time pastor, I think, still, maybe. And you want that, and that's a good thing. But is Jesus enough for you when he doesn't give you the good things that you want? We saw some examples in the scriptures of where Jesus wasn't enough for people. He wasn't enough for Demas because he fell in love with the world. He wasn't enough for the farmer who built bigger and bigger barns until his life was demanded from him. He wasn't enough for the rich young ruler who went away sad because he had great wealth. On the flip side, we saw that Jesus was enough for some of the saints. He was enough for the church in Thessalonica. Because Paul speaking to them says, when Christ, who is your life, appears, you will appear with him in glory. He was enough for them. In fact, Paul says, Christ is your life. That's what I look at you as a church, Paul says, and I can see that what you're all about is Jesus. He's enough for you. And Jesus, we know, was enough for the Apostle Paul. He says, I want to know Christ. He does know Christ, but he says, I want to know him more. He says, I want to be found in Christ. But Paul, we know you're a believer. We know you're in Christ. He's like, yeah, but I want to be found in him more. And I want to share in the sufferings of Christ. Yeah, but Paul, you've already been shipwrecked and beaten and bit by a snake and imprisoned and flogged. And Paul's like, yeah, but I want to share more in his sufferings. I want more of him. And he even goes on, he says, I consider all those past boastings to be worth nothing compared to the surpassing greatness of Jesus. I think, because we know he went on to be a wonderful apostle in the New Testament, that Jesus was enough for Philip. Because Philip said to Jesus, show us the Father, and that will be enough for us. And Jesus' response is, if you've seen me, Philip, you've seen the Father. I am enough for you, Philip. And I think Philip got it. We saw also that Jesus is not just enough for the saints, but he was enough for the Father. Because he is the apple of the Father's eye. And he says several times in Jesus' ministry, this is my Son with whom I am well pleased. He's enough for me. The question is it enough for you? The Father has given all things into the hand of the Son. We'll mention that later. That's how much Jesus is enough for the Father. He's so enough for him, he goes, here, you can have everything. It's all yours. All power and authority has been given to me, Jesus says, by my Father. Why? Because I'm enough for my Father. And then we that was the introduction. Okay, it took 40 minutes last time. But then we not like 38, I remembered, right? But then we started getting into the meat of the text, and we asked the question, what was it specifically about what the brothers said that revived the heart of Jacob? And we saw that it was the proclaimed gospel, the proclaimed good news that Joseph is alive. And that is what revived, that's one of the things, I think there's two more we'll look at this evening, but that's one of the things that revived the heart of Jacob, that led him to go, it is enough for me. And this was the message that the brothers gave to their father. Verse 17, Pharaoh tells Joseph, say this to your brothers. Verse 19, you, Joseph, says Pharaoh, to say this commandment to your brothers. So you've got this message, we talked about it, don't lose, just stick with me for a couple of more minutes before we get into it. But the message comes from the Pharaoh, from the highest, through the son, who's not dead, he's alive, to sinful brothers, and then on to Jacob. And it's this proclaimed gospel, this proclaimed good news that Joseph is alive, this proclaimed word that revives his heart. You see it in verse 27. I'm making the same point. When the brothers, when they told him all the words, the proclaimed word of Joseph, the spirit of their father revived. After 22 years of a broken heart, his heart was finally made whole. How can your soul be revived today? Well, you've got to realize, this is last week's sermon, but you've got to realize deep in your heart that the greater Joseph is alive. You have to realize that. If you only have a dead Jesus, or a Jesus who is distant and far away and who is not living and active like his word is living and active, then your heart will remain dead. It will be, as the Hebrew writer puts it, dulled. And then, the second thing, if you want your soul to be revived, is that Jesus' word must come to you in power, even though it comes through sinful brothers who crucified the Son, like me. It's the word of Jesus that will revive us in this life, to make sure that we get over the Jordan to meet him on the other side. I started painting this picture that Jesus is better than Joseph, and I'll build on that this evening. But I want to show you, just as we get going, that Jesus is better than Joseph. Because the word of Joseph does what to the heart of Jacob? It revives it. But you know what Jesus does? He just gives you a new one. He can revive it. If you're a believer here this evening, he's already revived it. But before that, he gave you a new one. And Joseph can't do that. Only Jesus can. So whatever sorrows you've encountered in life, even in the last couple of weeks, whatever pains you're going through, whatever difficulties and difficult circumstances you're facing, I just want to tell you that Jesus is enough. And wherever your heart has been, Jesus can revive it. He has the power to give you a new heart, and he can revive your heart. And it comes through his word. Psalm 19 verse 7 says that the word of the Lord, the word of Jesus, is perfect. And it is that will revive your soul. So, that was last time. Now we're going to have a look at the other two reasons why Jacob's heart is revived. So, firstly, it's because of the proclaimed gospel. Secondly, It's because of Joseph's great position. Look at verse 26 with me, chapter 45, verse 26. This is the brothers. The brothers told Jacob their father, Joseph is still alive. That was last week. And he is ruler over all the land of Egypt. It's got to be impressive, hasn't it? Put yourself in Jacob's shoes for a minute. He's not seen his son for 22 years. He has presumed him dead. I think he knows that the brothers have had a hand in his death, and he's been living with that sickness ever since. And then out of nowhere, seemingly nowhere to Jacob, he hears that his son is alive and he is ruler over all of Egypt. The most powerful empire that Jacob knew in his time, and his once lost son is ruler over it all. I'm sure at this moment his mind went back to that dream in chapter 37, and he probably went, my goodness me, my boy was telling the truth. We will bow down to him. In fact, the brothers already have. The great land of Egypt, the land of power and prosperity. This land of Egypt where in the last few chapters they've been seeking out as a family provisions and help that they might be kept alive in the famine. This is the great land of Egypt that his grandfather visited when there was a famine and Abraham went down with Sarah to Egypt. Joseph, the dead one, the despised one, the one who was rejected by his brothers, is now ruler, high and lifted up. Joseph's the one in charge. He rules and he reigns at Pharaoh's right hand. Great power is now at his disposal. Great power in his grasp. You can go and read it yourself later if you want. It's chapter 41, verse 37 to 44. But Pharaoh says, goodness me, Joseph, you're a really bright lad. You've interpreted these dreams absolutely brilliantly. You've got a great plan of what to do to keep us all alive for the next few years. In fact, Joseph, why don't you just rule the kingdom? I'll still sit in chariot number 1 because I'm the Pharaoh. I'm allowed to do that. But everything else, it's on you, son. You run the kingdom. Only I will be greater than you because I'm Pharaoh. Other than that, you're the greatest. No wonder Jacob's heart is revived when he hears of the great position of Joseph. You see, Jacob doesn't just know about this great ruler. Oh, Jacob really and truly knows him, doesn't he? It's his son. It's his beloved son. He really knows him. And he's the great one in Egypt. I think this is written, Jacob's heart being revived because of this great ruler. Not simply for our historical knowledge, but I think it's written for our instruction, so that our heart might be revived by a greater ruler, a greater Joseph. And so I just pondered then for, a few days, what is it that is greater about Jesus than Joseph? Well, firstly, we're told that Joseph is ruler over all the land of Egypt. But Jesus is greater than Joseph. This sounds like it's like I'm teaching just small children in Sunday school, but it's true, isn't it? Jesus doesn't just rule all of Egypt. No, Jesus rules over all. Just all. Don't need to add to it. He rules over all. He rules over all the earth. He rules over the land and the sea. He rules over the constellations and the cosmos. He rules over this present age. But guess what? He also is ruler over the age to come. Jesus says, we've quoted it already this evening, all authority in heaven and earth is mine. I'm the highest ruler. There is none beside me, none before me. He is the Alpha and the Omega in Revelation. And John 3:35, the Father loves the Son, and just like Pharaoh, he has placed all things into his hand, just like Pharaoh did with Joseph. You know, Jesus is ruler over everything that is happening in your life today. Everything. In fact, Jesus even rules over your sin. That's for another Bible study. But he rules over it all. So when you face a curveball in life, when you have a tragedy in the family or on your street, when you get sacked from work unexpectedly, made redundant, when there's a relationship breakdown that comes out of nowhere, when your children decide to go off the rails, or your grandchildren, when your house is repossessed because you can't pay the bills, when your health doesn't just go downhill but it just goes from bad to worse, Jesus is ruler over all. And that should bring us some wonderful encouragement. Let me tell you what a ruler Joseph was from the context, because he was a good ruler. When his brothers approach him for help, with their years of sin and guilt in tow, what kind of ruler is he? Does he stand far away? Does he deal in justice without grace? No. He's rich in mercy, isn't he? You read it yourself, chapter 45, verse 4. Joseph says to his brothers, because he's just announced to them, I'm Joseph. And they're probably going, oh no. And he says, I'm Joseph. And in verse 4, in fact, it says that they were dismayed at his presence. They couldn't answer him. They were so afraid. And in verse 4, Joseph says to his brothers, come near to me. I mean, he's even polite. He's a polite ruler. But he is a kind, gracious ruler. In verse 14 and 15, you see more of the heart of Joseph, which I think is just a mere reflection, a pale reflection of the heart of Jesus. But then he fell upon his brother Benjamin's neck in verse 14, and he wept over him. And Benjamin wept upon his neck. And Joseph kissed all the brothers. Oh my goodness me. Spurgeon would preach just that, wouldn't he? He kissed all the brothers. And he wept upon them all. This is the kind of ruler that Joseph is. But friends, I'm not here to talk about Joseph. You know, what's his face? Who's that great playwright guy? The West End. Lloyd Webber, not Lloyd Jones. Don't confuse them. Goodness me. Andrew Lloyd Webber can tell you the story of Joseph, okay? But I've not come to talk to you about Joseph. I've come to talk to you about Jesus. You see, Jesus, just like Joseph, or better than Joseph, is master over all. And Jesus, like Joseph, but better, his compassion is over us all. Even though he is the great lion of the tribe of Judah, yet he still will stoop and gather the chicks under his wing. He is the one who gently leads the young. He is the one who sits and eats with sinners. He is the one who one day will say, come up higher on his table. And he is the one who shares his glory with the church. Joseph reigned over Egypt for the fruitful years, but he also reigned over the years of famine. He reigned over the 7 years, ruled over the 7 years of plenty, and he also reigned over the 7 years of famine. And Jesus likewise. He reigns over your years of pleasure, but he also reigns, as we've said, over your years of pain. Jesus does command the storms in this life, but one day he will rule over the crystal sea. Jesus is the one who rules and governs the day and the night. And Jesus is the one who is not just enthroned in Egypt, but who is seated in high at the Father's right hand in glory. Joseph's throne was temporary. Jesus' throne is eternal. And around the throne of Joseph, there were servants and probably female servants. There was definitely a cupbearer. There was a baker or new baker. I think the old one had the chop. But do you know what's around the throne of Jesus? Well, there's all sorts. We could talk about it forever. But there's a rainbow. Like a real rainbow. There are jewels. There are myriads of angels. There are archangels. There are seraphim, cherubim, living creatures. Call you what you like. There are elders. There are martyrs. And one day there will be the complete redeemed church. Not just servants like Joseph had. Oh, far, far greater. So please don't tell me tonight that Jesus is not enough. Or you're looking at a different Jesus to me. I guess what I'm asking before I move on to my last point is Jesus great? Is his position great in your estimation this evening? I know that most of you, if not all of you, will say, yes, Jesus is great. You only have to be in church for about a year to realize how great Jesus is. Like my 3-year-old, she knows Jesus is great. Actually, she's not 3 yet, she's 2. She knows she's great, that Jesus is great. I guess my question is Jesus great in your heart today? Does he rule in your life, not by knowledge, does he rule in your life by your own experience today? Can you testify, not just, yeah, Jesus is great, he's the Son of God, he sits at the Father's right hand. I know all that, the Bible tells me that. Satan knows that. But Satan doesn't have a lived experience of the greatness of God in his heart. You can. You can wake up tomorrow morning and you can say, my heart is filled with praise because Jesus is great. My Redeemer lives. I know I will see him one day standing upon the earth. That is the heart of a man who knows how great his Savior is. Is Jesus great? Is his position great? Is he supreme? Evidenced and confirmed by your affections of your heart, not just your intellect. I was listening to the radio this week whilst I was driving, and I was listening to Stuart Briscoe. I think he was on Premier Christian Radio. He's one of the regular preachers on there. And he said this, and I thought, as soon as he thought it, I thought, right, I've got to write that down. Can't remember that. Can't forget it. And he said, our problem today is that we tend to be underwhelmed by God rather than overwhelmed by his majesty. And I thought, wow, that is good. Most of Christian radio is garbage, right? But that was good. We tend to be underwhelmed by God rather than overwhelmed by his majesty. Peter got it. Peter saw the majesty of Jesus and he said, Lord, depart from me. I'm a sinful man. John fell down in Revelation as though he was dead. Saul was blinded and his heart was affected. It wasn't just a theoretical question of his mind. He said, who are you, Lord? It's an issue of the heart. And Saul got it. Isaiah got it and he said, woe is me, I'm undone. And Samson's parents, even Manoah, he got it. He said, surely we will die because we have seen the Lord. His heart's been moved. So my question today for you is the position of Jesus' greatness, his greatness, is that just in your head or is it in your heart. Let's move on. So, first point from last week. Your heart can be revived as you hear the proclaimed gospel of the risen Son. Secondly, from this week, your heart will be revived as you ponder the greater position of the Son. And lastly, doing well. Lastly, Jesus is enough because of the generosity of his provision. The generosity of his provision. You can go and read yourself in chapter 45, verse 16 to 23, the great provision that Joseph provides for the brothers and for his father. I'll just give you a few, right? Okay. Rich blessings upon his family. He gives them changes of clothes. Again, man, I don't want to go overboard with the whole Jesus thing, but Jesus one day will give you a white robe. And he's already given you the righteousness of his Son. I mean, Jesus just loves giving out clothes. He clothed Adam and Eve in the garden. Christ on the cross, he takes off his robe, and there is some wonderful centurion who gets that garment. Amazing. Jesus loves giving out clothes to people. I wonder if it was the same centurion, the same guy that was converted. I don't know. But anyway, we're moving off. I'll never know the answer. But he gives them changes of clothes. He gives them male and female donkeys loaded, get this phrase, loaded with the good things of Egypt. Man, what were those things? What were the good things of Egypt that went on these camels? I don't know. I'm sure lots of women could say some things that might have been really nice from Egypt. Probably some really nice jewelry, probably some really nice perfume, some really nice spices. The men are probably going, what was the food like? I hope there was some nice food in those sacks. Some big steaks from Egypt. I don't know, but loaded with the good things of Egypt. We know that he's already given them grain, and he's given them money back in their sacks, gold and silver. And the text tells us that he has given them provisions for their journey, on top of all those other things. I haven't got time to go through them all or ponder them all. But I want to tell you this, that Joseph was not stingy to his family. He was not stingy, but he was lavishly generous. This is one of the things that revives the heart of Jacob. Just as Joseph represented the brothers in Egypt, giving them favor with Pharaoh, so Jesus is our great mediator who represents us before the Father. In fact, Hebrews tells us that he ever lives to make intercession for you. You know, Jesus is always there, standing in the gap. Someone prayed it earlier, but standing in the gap between you and the Father. Just as Joseph was stood in the gap between the brothers and Pharaoh. Joseph has storehouses filled with grain, enough for another few years. But Jesus has storehouses filled with unending mercy, with unending peace, and with unending love. With Jesus, you don't just inherit the finest of the land. Actually, Matthew 5 tells us that one day you will inherit the earth. Is he enough for you? Oh, he should be. He should be. Joseph, at his best, could preserve the life of this family in famine. But one day they would die. But Jesus, no, he sustains life itself. And one day he will create all things new. Do you remember the feeding of the 5,000? We are told that after these people had encountered and had this meal with Jesus, we are told that they had had their fill. Give me another word for fill, beginning with E. They had had not too much, not too little, just enough. They were satisfied with the provision of Jesus, just as the family of Joseph were no doubt more than satisfied with the provision of him. And this is the heartbeat, I think, of every true believer, that Jesus is enough for me.
Indeed, he is.
And if he's not tonight, then I hope that you will continue to walk with him until he makes that a reality in your life. I want you to be able to say with the psalmist, who have I in heaven but you? And on earth there is nothing I desire besides you. I've got 8 minutes left if I'm going to match last week. Start your stopwatches, go. This is the last bit now I want to focus on is what the Lord has brought to me this week fresh. And I want to give you something fresh, like manna every day, not just something that the Lord gave me 2 months ago. So as I continued to ponder the text this week, this is what the Lord showed me. What good is it if Joseph is alive, the gospel, the good news, he's alive? What good is it if Joseph is great if he does not look upon you with favor? I was asking that question because prior to the brothers meeting Joseph, guess what? Joseph was alive and Joseph was ruler in Egypt. So then the question has to be, what good is it if that's true, but he doesn't look upon you with favor? The brothers would be stuffed, wouldn't they? They would have gone out of, what's the phrase? Out of the frying pan into the fire. Famine in Egypt, if I didn't famine in Israel, we're going to die. So we'll go to Egypt. And now we're definitely going to die. Imagine if Joseph, being alive and powerful as he was, and who had every right to bring down the scales of justice upon his brothers. Imagine if he'd have taken that approach. He wouldn't have been wrong. You have to understand that, because it's crucial to you understanding the position of Jesus. If Joseph had brought down the scales of justice rightfully, correctly, with dignity, with integrity, the brothers would have been stuffed. And Joseph wouldn't have sinned in doing so. Because they were guilty. And they knew it. You read it in the chapters before, they knew it. Reuben says, this is why I told you we shouldn't have killed him, we shouldn't have sent him into slavery, we shouldn't have done all that. But thankfully, because I believe he is a picture of Jesus, even if it's a pale one, he does look upon them with favor. He steps forward with generosity and provision. Now notice 2 last things before I'm done. This really just caught me wonderfully today, this week. Joseph's desire for them. He's not just gracious to them. He's not just giving them wonderful provision, which I hope you've enjoyed this evening. But he has a greater desire, which reminds me of Jesus. Do you want to know what it is? Go with me to verse 18. Chapter 45, verse 18. What version do you use? NIV. Who's got an NIV?
I've got the King James.
Let's see if it's in the King James. I'm sure it's in the NIV. Verse 18, chapter 45. Okay, it's very close. It's very close. I should have checked it before we started. But this is what Joseph says. Do this. Load your animals and return to the land of Canaan and bring your father and your families what? Back to me. This is what caught me this week. 3 words. Back to me. Actually, in my version it says, verse 18, chapter 45. Have no concern. Nope, that's not verse 18. That's verse 20. Verse 18. Take your father and your households and come to me. Oh, I was lost in those 3 words this week. Come to me. You see, Joseph's desire was not just to provide wonderfully, bountifully, lavishly for his family. His desire was that they would be with him. You see it again in verse 19. And you, Joseph, are commanded to say this. That's what Pharaoh says to Joseph. Do this. Take wagons from the land of Egypt for your little ones, your wives, and bring your father, and come. Come. And this, my friends, is the gospel of Jesus. The son mistreated by the brothers is alive. He is raised from the dead and seated in the highest place. He's paid the penalty for sin, and now all authority in heaven and earth is now his. All things from the Father have been placed into the hand of the Son. And at this point, we should tremble with fear, like the brothers should have done. Except his invitation to come to me. This is the gospel, friends. And Jesus shows up, and in his ministry he says, come to me, all you who are tired and weary, and I will give you rest. Jesus could punish you. He would be right to punish us. He would be justified. He would not be cruel. He would not be a sinner. He would not be being vindictive. He would be doing what is right. And yet, he says, come to me. The very one who has every right to exact revenge and meter out perfect justice is the one who graciously provides not only for the immediate needs but also for the needs of the future by bringing them to himself. This is what Jesus prayed in John 17, isn't it? Father, I desire that they also whom you have given me might be with me where I am, to see my glory that you've given me. So I've got 50 seconds left. What was the second thing that caught me this week? I think it's something that I just wanted to encourage you with. Not only does Jesus bid them come to himself, which is the essence of the gospel, but actually Joseph now is going to provide or make provisions for them on the journey to meet him. Okay? And don't miss this because it's all over the text. But we keep being told these are the provisions are for the journey. Actually, we're told that he gives them wagons to carry his father. It's when Jacob sees the wagons that Joseph had sent to carry him to Egypt. That's when his heart is revived. And this is what Jesus does for us. Just as David's servants, or probably his soldiers, carried Mephibosheth to the table, so Joseph will carry his father to Egypt. And both of those people are just pictures of Jesus who carries us to the Father. Isaiah 46 verse 4 talked about this with Steve this afternoon. Some of you will know it. But Isaiah says, God says actually, even to your old age and great hairs, I am he. I am he who will sustain you. I have made you and I will carry you. Maybe you're feeling today that you won't make it for all kinds of reasons. Because of your own sin, because of your own failure to grow in maturity, because of your own frailty. All kinds of reasons. Because of your own sorrow. Like Jesus, he was sorrowful even to the point of death. He couldn't take any more. And maybe you feel like you won't make it, but let me tell you, Jesus will get you home. Hope on him. Lean on him. And he will give you everything you need for the journey. I've got some other wonderful things, but I'm going to stop there. I hope you've seen something of the glory of Jesus in this little single verse from Joseph's life. But I will close just by asking this question. Jacob says, it is enough for me. Joseph is still alive. I will go and see him before I die. And I can't get away from the challenge that comes in that verse. The question is, will you see Jesus before you die? Because if not, he will be the first thing. Well, either way, he will be the first thing you see when your eyes close in this life. And you will see him. You will either see him in favor, or you will see him in his fierceness. And just like I said before, he will be right to be fierce towards you if you have resisted him on the call. I hope that you will be able to say, I will go and see him before I die. Amen.